In London, technology is the Silicon Roundabout. Introducing a new talk show dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. Silicon Real. Each week, interviewing entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, financial technology, accelerators, and incubators in an exciting three-person format. Learn about the people behind the innovation. Locally filmed, locally sourced. Silicon Real. It's about the people. This is Silicon Real, the weekly talk show dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. I'm Brian Rose. I also host London Real. It's a similar show, same setup here. We just recently had astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was a cool dude. We've had Tim Ferriss from the 4 Hour Everything, and we just had a rock star that was in here. His name was Rao Reynolds. He sings for a band called Enter Shikari. They're a real British post-hardcore band, and he was the nicest dude you ever met in your life, And he's on stage screaming, and they're really big guys into the zeitgeist movement, real message behind their music, but just the coolest guy you ever meet. So check that out at London Real. But today we're here to talk about tech. My co-host is Colin Pyle. You're running coffee companies that are selling out. You got Lingo's Language Schools. What's going on with you?
Yeah, super busy. London Coffee Festival last weekend, which was awesome. We had a nice stand, Lost my voice over 4 days, but it was good fun. Lots of people testing our coffee. Sunday Times article just blew up, lots of customers. So things are rolling. And then Lingo's is going great. Last week mentioned Lingo's right now. We have a special for Silicon Real, so 20-pound vouchers to, lingos.co/Silicon Real and find a local teacher to teach you a language, or at least start. Yeah, test it out.
Awesome. Yeah, so they can get a free language lesson, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so give it a try.
Excellent. Before we get to the show, I just want to thank our sponsor, TaskRabbit, which is an online marketplace that allows users to outsource small jobs and tasks. They do a bunch of our video backend stuff for Silicon Real. They also will clean your house and fix your car and all this other crazy stuff. So check them out. You can use the code REAL25, get 25 pounds free, and get a couple hours of everything. I think the Three Beards uses them to clean up after their events. Everyone's using them. Lauren Sherman, the head of community, was on here a couple months ago, and she was awesome, really.
It's great. So 25 pounds, get anything done, and 20 pounds,
learn a language.
Get cultured up.
Get yourself sorted.
And you say we never give you anything.
Best
things hell of a deal.
Best things in life for free. All right, on to the show. Our guest today is Mr. Benjamin Southworth, who was our very first guest on Silicon Real some 41 weeks ago.
Wow.
That's quite a moment here. You are the former deputy CEO of Tech City. Mm-hmm. You were a founder of Three Beards and Tech Bikers, among many other things. Mm-hmm. You're the host of Chew the Fat, which is the Three Beards regular kind of town hall kind of discussion meeting, right? You kind of interview people in front of the audience and
so it's the kind of fireside chat sort of thing.
Right.
It's interesting people, interesting conversation, and just trying to what we noticed was we felt there's too many panels, or then there were kind of keynotes, and no one really sort of got into the heart of the matter, really sort of questioned and sort of tried to unpack some of the ideas. So I spend quite a lot of time, as you do, you know what it's like interviewing people. You have to put a lot of research in, a lot of time in. If you really want to get something meaningful out, you have to know that person inside out. So tonight we're doing a little dinner with Devon Hunt, and then next month we've got Dayan Sujic, who's director of the Design Museum and has written 15 to 20 books on architecture. It's just a really fascinating man about culture, design, architecture, planning. So, there's a huge amount to research and read and try and pull out the interesting stories and fascinating tales.
I take notes from your interview style. I watched some of your pieces. Colin's been to a bunch of events. Yeah. So, it's tricky. And you also have to be in the moment and stay in the moment. And you have a live audience too, so you got to feel them out. So, it's not easy doing this job.
Sometimes the microphones don't work.
We have that is AV is a problem, and we're not quite as well equipped as this setup here.
And we have our days, but so that's awesome. I'm going to finish introducing you. You also are the founder of the Ada Lovelace Academy, which is a free school for 16 to 19-year-olds specializing in digital and entrepreneurial skills. First of all, welcome back to Silicon Real.
Cool.
It's the first time we've said that.
First time ever we've
Wow.
had someone
So I'm the
back.
first repeat guest.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. You know, I was looking back to an email because I was trying to contact Ben, and I looked back to the very first email I got from Ben, and I think Bryce had just introduced me to him and said, yeah, that these guys are doing London Real, they're thinking about doing Silicon Real, and like the first message I got from Ben was this. This is what he said, quote, "Sounds amazing. I'd love to be involved in any way I can." Smiley face. And I just want to say, like, that is part of the main reason we're doing this, is because the community is just like such a positive place. Everyone is like always on board to support other people in any kind of venture they want to do. And I think it's what drew me and you into this whole community and like wanting to do this show, because it was like, you know, everyone is just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's promote each other. Let's help this whole community. So getting a little sentimental there, but you know, I know. And like,
It's good. I realized I was at the London Coffee Festival dealing with like, you know, guys, old school coffee guys, right? You know, the growers to the roasters, and it's just like they're all got their, you know, their cards close to their chest, and I was just so untech like, and it was really annoying. Like I was really upset. Like people would come up to me and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, sure, you know, I'll introduce you to the guy that, you know, manufactures our capsules," and they're like, "Yeah, you can't just give away that information." I'm like, "But if it was a tech business, I would," right? It's just like you just help each other out, and you just know that you'll do what's best for everyone, and not just be you know, only in it for yourself. And
yeah, and I bumped into you with Steph the Hacker the other day, and he had written an article on his blog about how like he doesn't sign NDAs anymore. He doesn't think anybody else should, because he said ultimately the amount you sacrifice with trying to keep all that info really closed in, and ultimately it's not the execution, it's the idea, it's the execution, and you know, just keep it open. And I guess it's new for me and us in this community, but this is something you've seen from the get-go, I guess.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, there doesn't seem to be any benefit anymore to hiding away what you're trying to do, because it's a little bit like you're closing down network effect, you're closing down the opportunity for people to help you and support you. And it's not, I don't know, it feels like a very old school way of doing business. I mean, things are competitive, business is competitive, but it doesn't need to be hyper aggressively competitive. It doesn't need to be sort of, no one's really doing anything that interesting. You know, insurance companies, banking, you know, even tech. I mean, the majority of things, unless you've got some really, really smart, clever IP that is completely game-changing, just tell people what you're up to, because they'll either help you or they'll support you or they'll tell you it's a bad idea or tell you it's a good idea or whatever you can. And actually, you need to know this stuff. It's not, you know, it's crucial to get as much information about what's happening around you and what you're up to and sense check stuff. And, you know, the internet enables that. That's the whole point of this.
Feedback, immediate feedback.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, a lot of companies used to have stealth mode. I haven't heard that term used in years now.
No, we had a really interesting guy come down to Trinkabout. This is probably 9 months ago, and I got really annoyed with him because he was like, I was like, "So what do you do?" And he's like, "I'm in stealth." And I'm like, "Well, you know, of all the people here, like, maybe you should tell me, and I'll tell you who you need to talk to." He's like, "Why should I do that?" And I'm like, "Well, I've been running this for a while. I kind of know a bunch of people. Like, you tell me what you're doing, and I'll tell you who you should talk to and make the introductions for you." He's like, "No, you'll take my idea." I'm like, "I've got no interest in taking your idea. Like, all I want to do is help you." And he's like,
I'm impressed.
"I'm not going to tell you."
You were still talking to him. At this point.
Like, and you know, but I got so annoyed because I was like, how can I communicate to this guy that he doesn't need to be like this? And we never saw him again. Whatever it was, never seemed to launch. And I just think, you know, how much did he smother that idea by kind of keeping it to himself and then not being able to be connected to investors, designers, hackers, developers, and people who could have helped him.
Yeah, it's hard enough when you have all those connections, right?
Yeah, it is.
To make
still
something
hard,
happen.
right?
Yeah, it's still very hard. You know, we caught you right on the back end of your Tech City career, and I know you were coming out of it at the time. You had all these things that you were working on, but I'm wondering, a year later, have you had time to process the time that you had there at Tech City, and to know how it kind of changed you, and what you kind of saw coming out?
Yeah, I mean, it took a while, actually. It took a real long time. It probably wasn't until November and then really probably January, February that kind of hit home what I'd been up to and what I'd done and what I'd seen and what I'd learnt. And was, you know, crazily ambitious about what I was going to get done afterwards. You know, I had to almost take most of the ideas out back and shoot them. Luckily, the school idea has remained, which is great. But it's been interesting to see how it's developed and changed and moved, and how the organisation has restructured itself. And you know, I'm not not 100% sure whether it's making the right decisions at the moment.
Because Joanna was there, and then Joanna
Yeah.
left a little bit early, and now Gerard is running it. I mean, has the organization itself changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's shifted a lot. I mean, there's been this recent announcement about L&P doing a lot more. So it feels like the organisation has shifted much more to a sort of GLA-focused London sort of piece, rather than the UK-wide sort of number 10 piece that it was before. I mean, I think it still has an opportunity to do great work, and I still think there's a need for an organisation like that. My concern is it feels like the last 12 months have not been hugely productive. I don't know if that's a bias that's sort of ego-based, or whether it's they're not making enough noise in the right areas. But even as someone who takes a great interest in it, I still struggle to find information about it. Still struggle to kind of really understand what it's doing and what it's trying to achieve. And I kind of feel that even with all the knowledge I have and access to these people, that's probably not a great sign. So I'm urging Gerard, who I speak to fairly regularly, to really connect back with the community and really sort of listen to the needs and desires of the local people, because that's the point of it. But we will see what happens. I mean, it's in a difficult transition period, and we'll have to see whether it kind of regains, I think, some of the success it did manage to achieve.
It's interesting because it's like this glaring, it's like this institution in the center of companies that are living and dying by the sword. Like, do you have something that works? Do you have someone people want to invest real money? If not, then go somewhere else. And then it's this institution with this kind of this nebulous mandate that's trying to exist in the middle of it. It's very strange.
It is very strange. I mean, as I always said, and I've always been a strong supporter of government doing what government can do to help. And I think the implementations of policies that Rohan did and many others at Number 10 were superb. SEIS, EIS, R&D tax credits. These are great policies, and really have. We've seen the impact of that. We've seen that really rapidly increase activity in the area, and shining a light on what's happening around here. The work that you're doing, the work that the Three Beards are doing, the work that people like Up Global are doing, and others, really celebrating entrepreneurship. Not only in the UK, in London, also across Europe. These are great things. These are really important. But I just wonder how much the impact of what kind of Tech City is trying to do now is really filtering down to people on the ground, and whether or not it's become more of a sort of educational piece for MPs and other people who are not maybe quite as well connected or understanding it. And if that kind of glass ceiling and that boundary there isn't permeable, then it will always fall into the same standard criticism that government organisations face, which is government's useless, it's slow moving, it doesn't really do what it needs to do, it doesn't listen to the will of the people, and that's just going to be a real shame, I think.
It's funny. It seems like its success has almost been its downfall, right? Because it did a lot, right? It did a lot for tech city and a lot of the stuff when you were around and what it implemented in tax credits, and now it's becoming a bigger thing within government. And so more eyeballs are on it, more people are trying to understand it, and that cause is actually making it less agile and can't move as fast. And
there's a lot more focus on digital entrepreneurship. There's a lot more focus on coding in schools. And Joanna wrote a piece on Friday that I didn't think was very helpful to the cause, which was drop French lessons and replace it with coding. And it's these are the sorts of very dangerous statements, because...
Why don't you like that? Because I know you're a big fan of getting
I'm a huge fan.
coding in schools.
I'm a huge fan of coding. I'm a huge fan of digital education. The question is not how do we get... there's kind of two parts to this, right? Yes, coding should be taught in schools, I think, in the same way that every subject should be taught in schools, because the point of school and the point of education is to introduce people to concepts they're unaware of, not to introduce them to things they already know about. It's to get children integrated with history, with classics, with English literature, with French, with German, with thinking about things in a completely different way. And the question here, and I think what I feel Joanna should have really talked about, is, what does French look like when you put technology at the heart of education, right? So it is the sort of work like that you're doing, right? Which is, how do you use the internet to reach out to French kids? How do you stop that sort of quite sort of old school French exchange model that we had at school, or those day trips to France in Calais where everyone speaks English. How do you actually create a really meaningful education system that's powered by technology? And that will reduce the overhead, that will reduce teachers' time, that will create a system where you can teach better and you can track better a child's development. And I think when you're already confronted with people saying coding is unnecessary, we need to improve English skills and math skills, saying that you want to drop a language or drop a lesson and replace it with coding, unfortunately just plays into the hands that people think about tech, which is an echo chamber. It's the privileged, it's the elite, it's an arrogance, it's not connected to the real world. And I just think, unfortunately, by making statements like that, it doesn't help. I work really closely with the Year of Code initiative, and these are the challenges we face, and we face them with people who are doing the similar initiatives, which is how do you communicate successfully the desire and the need for coding? And the answer is, fundamentally, we're getting into a very productized sort of system of computers. You can't take your mobile phone apart anymore. You can't take your iMac apart. You can't even replace the battery on your MacBook. You can't really get inside a machine anymore and understand exactly how it works. And it's all becoming so miniaturized and complicated that even I, as a fairly technical person, don't really understand what they're doing these days because it's got so clever. And I think, how is a child supposed to learn that? And how are we supposed to educate that? And we're in danger of creating a generation of consumers rather than a generation of makers. And the point of teaching code is not that everyone should be a developer or everyone should program. It's that you understand the basic fundamentals of a very, very important communication method. And I think to deny any form of communication, be it language, be it coding, be it maths, be it English, be it art, be it music, is a failure for the entire human race. And I just was very disappointed that it seemed like a PR stunt, and it seemed a deliberately inflammatory remark, and it kind of upset me. It doesn't seem to be a very intelligent view.
Right. No, understood. Point made on that. I'm curious what it was like to come back into this scene after you were like kind of a year out, and to look at did it look like it used to look, or were you like, wow, this has changed a lot? And in the last year, even we've seen, King.com, we've seen Just Eat, we've seen, some bigger moves happen in this community. Did you come back and you were like, wow, this has changed a lot? I mean, I know you weren't really gone from it, but you were out, your entrepreneur hat was off for a year, right?
Yeah. I really tried to make sure I didn't go away. My entire job and focus and aim was to be accessible and to open open the corridors of power up to those who needed them. So, luckily I saw the transitions. It's been tricky putting the entrepreneur hat on, and it doesn't fit as well as it used to.
Why is that?
My time in government really changed me, and it changed me in ways I didn't expect it to. I came out with a much more powerful sort of social mandate, and my sort of problem solving hat on. I want to solve bigger problems than just, how do I bring money in? How do I create an app that people want? How do I, create a business that is revenue positive? I kind of wanted to look at really structural problems. I wanted to look at education. I want to look at society. I want to look at democracy. I want to look at much bigger problems. And so in some ways it was fascinating really fascinating to see the inside of something that not enough people get to see the problems that democracy faces, that the current UK government has, the internal problems that government faces, as well as how that impacts people externally, and how you can see the internal decisions fail to get communicated externally, how the press and government interact. And so I kind of came out with a really sort of strong belief that there are much bigger problems to apply myself to. Which is kind of what I've been spending the last sort of 11 months doing, and it's certainly not financially rewarding, but it's certainly morally and ethically and intellectually really satisfying.
Right, it's almost like you kind of went to the mountain and spent some time up there on your own, and you came back and
a little bit,
you were changed. But
yeah.
you were talking about this on the first episode as well.
Right.
And I remember being a bit surprised because you came out with this, real kind of social mission. Whereas, let's be honest, most 90% of the people that come on this show are trying to create something that's ultimately wants to be worth a bunch of money.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind some money. But,
What do you think of the recent like IPO phenomenon, and do you think London's growing up, or how does it feel to you, just the whole scene?
I think it's maturing, and it's kind of beginning to validate itself. You kind of take the scene as, almost as a startup in of itself. It's spent the first sort of 4 years kind of working out what its minimum viable product is, working out where its revenue streams are, and it's beginning to kind of sort of coalesce now, and it's becoming, we're beginning to see sort of almost productized versions of things happen. So, I think we'll see after King, a series of IPOs drop, and hopefully a couple a quarter, and that should start to really verify that there are big problems, which is big private equity houses, huge sort of family funds and global funds are not yet investing into this in the same way they are in America, and so we really need that to change, and the only IPOs are going to change that. If we can get the confidence up. I mean, we're seeing the housing market go through a huge resurgence / bubble, and again, as we've been saying for years, we need people to be investing into tech and sort of new businesses in the way they invest into property, and when we get that, then we'll get a much more commensurate model that we have in the States. People are much more, because there's a lack of social security, there's a lack of support. In a very socialized sort of way, the Americans tend to be much more speculative. They tend to invest into stocks much more. They tend to have to find ways to keep money coming into the system after they retire. And Twitter and Facebook and others are good ways to very quickly double, triple your money if you're smart and you're savvy. We need the UK to get to that similar point where people like my parents have money. My father invests in classic cars instead of tech. We need that piece to change. My father's very happy to buy a lovely car at good money and use it and know that he'll break even when he sells it on. And he gets the enjoyment of it. We need people like my father to say, well, look, actually I can buy King.com, I can hold it for 12 months, it looks like they're going to do well, I can double my money and I can walk away. Until that's kind of going on, we're still going to lag a little bit behind, unfortunately, I think the US. But it's hard to know whether the US is also going through a hype cycle at the moment. There's a lot of value companies that I think are valued far too highly. Quora has just been valued at a silly amount of money.
Quora, what do they do?
They're like a Q&A site. They're like a
Okay,
fancy Yahoo Answers.
Quora, yeah.
Yeah, and
they're getting what, billions and billions.
yeah, they're getting billions in
valuations.
valuations, and it just doesn't feel right. And I think at some moment there's going to be a shift from. At the moment, I think people are valuing the data, the demographics, saying, oh, they've got X number of users. And I think at some point that's going to shift from the realization that unless you have the sort of knowledge that Facebook has, you have that true identity, that true demographic knowledge, that true understanding of being able to behaviorally map and predict where people are going to be spending money, your inherent value is still your IP. And unless your IP is smart, then actually the valuation of your company is probably flawed. We've seen Google acquire, people like Nest. They've got an absolute steal considering the IP and the intelligence in that team. So I think, Apple, Google, Facebook, Facebook acquiring Oculus Rift, an incredible deal. Expensive. Facebook can afford it as a percentage of what they have. It's nothing. But there's really deep, intelligent tech. And the fact that they now own that, that can be the future of retail. That can be the future of online interaction. That can be the future of lots of things. And, to get it for the cost they got it right now, absolute bargain. But again, that's a deal that's taken off the IPO market. That's a deal that you and I, as potential speculative investors, cannot play in. So I think looking at what Apple and Facebook and Google, super smart people with super intelligent MMA minds and great tracking and great understanding and knowing their product roadmaps, they're the sort of, for me, the signals. I think what's kind of happening on the public markets is potentially inflated at the moment.
Interesting view. And what about something like WhatsApp, where they're spending $16 billion for a site you could argue they don't have much information about the people except for usernames?
It doesn't make a single bit of sense to me.
Okay.
Just
but, you know,
defense.
It's interesting to me. Well, I
Seems
guess
to be.
it will play out in a way. I mean, I guess the Instagram buy at the time was thought to be a little toppy, but now maybe
Well, the YouTube buy in '06 was toppy by Google too, right? So,
but I think you're right. I mean, it's it's defensive land grabs, right? It's
well, I read an article. It was Zuckerberg gave up 10% of his company instead of the castle or whatever, right? So.
Oh, you mean for that? You mean for that acquisition?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one, and I was listening to the Instagram founder interview like 3 months before they were bought, and it was just interesting, like to see. But like you said, I mean, just because it's users, doesn't necessarily mean it's cash. The virtual reality acquisition is something really out of left field for Facebook, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. Are they trying to get into payments now? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So FT article today or yesterday, which is really cool.
It seems like they would have done that a long time ago, but I guess they had to be careful of their business model not to become everything to everyone.
It's for me. I think that's so exciting. Coming from a background of sort of moving money for companies and stuff, it's like the banking system is slowly breaking down. Tavid on TransferWise is doing just amazing stuff, and I think Facebook and the money behind Facebook and Google and these guys
and Bitcoin is part of that conversation as well.
Bitcoin I think is it's just so exciting because guys like Western Union and stuff like that. That's so fucking old school.
The Western Union fees are like usurious, if that's the word. I mean, it's mostly poor people that pay these high rates.
And if you've ever tried, just one of our investors in the coffee business was in Chicago, and so he had some UK stocks, and he couldn't sell his UK stocks and just transfer the UK money to our UK account. He had to then settle into a UK account. Took him 4 or 5 months to open up a UK account and settle his stocks in a UK account. Rather than
issues and
it's just like that can't be that can't exist.
And whether Bitcoin is the future or not, when you see these like transaction fee-less changes of moving this money around the world, then that's a great way to show how banks are really not doing things the right way.
I mean, Colin will tell you. I mean, there's no cost of them transferring it anyway, right?
No.
Like, and it's happening in real time. It's happening in picoseconds.
Sure.
They're just charging the consumer because they can. I mean, this is I think some of the myth. Like, as a consumer, we look at things like Bitcoin and we look at all these benefits. We have them, right? We have an electronic banking system. We have feeless system. It's just unfortunately, the sort of the grey hairs sitting in their pinstripe suits. They don't want to lose that margin. They don't want to lose that fee earning piece. And it's only until ideas that we've seen in the States play out in a deregulated market like Simple and others appear and challenge that mainstream view of whether you should be paying for banking at all, whether you should be paying for fees. That's the only time it will shift. And the UK seems to be kind of coming around. The big banks are sniffing around these options. They're trying to look at what's possible. But still, it's innovation teams and digital leadership teams reporting back up to C-levels and the board. It's not quite yet at board level acceptance that actually, if you want to survive the next 100, 200, 300 years like you previously have, you're going to have to lose 25% of your business in terms of what you're making, because that's how it's going to go.
Yeah, it's going to take them years. I mean, we were both in banking for a long time, and banking, just like any entrenched industry, they refuse to acknowledge because their fees are so high. I mean, the transfer fees are probably 100 times the cost of, say, a TransferWise or a Bitcoin transfer. So they'll hold on to that as long as they can, and then they'll adapt. They'll probably miss some market share along the way. And
of course, and it's so hard to take your money out of a bank, right? Like, if you've got a mortgage, you've got loans, you've got an overdraft, right? Boom, you're locked in. You can't move. And they know that. They've survived for 300 years because they're exceptionally cynical and intelligent at understanding, human factors.
Yeah, it's where all the tall buildings are in the city. It's for a reason.
No, but that's why I love the Facebook guy, because Facebook's not going to sell out. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's what I hate. It stifles innovation a lot of time when these great companies sell out a little too early to like a big bank or something like that, and their tech gets swallowed up and it gets pushed to the side. Whereas if Facebook can really sort of make a go at this, then they can really change the playing field.
I mean, Facebook can link what it seems like the mission, right, is that mission is a more open, connected world, right? Kind of Facebook's the kind of Trojan horse on that mission. If you've got real identity and then real payments, that's it. You've stitched it up, and you've solved proving who people are because it's backed by 10 years of Facebook data, and then you've got your own credit scoring mechanisms, et cetera. You can completely invert the pyramid.
Yeah.
You can completely sort of rewrite the database on how finance is done, and that's incredible.
Yeah, it gets really exciting there.
Yeah.
This is London Real, and so we're always talking about the city and how it's emerging and how it's the greatest place in the world for tech. But I always forget that Europe's right on our doorstep. I know the Three Beards is all over Europe, including Bulgaria and Amsterdam, and you guys are everywhere. And I was just wondering if how is Europe doing? I mean, we know centers like Berlin and a bunch of other places are doing really well. We also hear from guys that have been on the show that they moved to London. Let's look at Just Eat. They were in Denmark and they came here. And so what do you see as the state of the union when it comes to that, those kind of dueling prospects of do you move to London or do you stay where you are?
So I had a really interesting trip. One of the people I work with fairly regularly is Weira. And
big fans. Wade Simon Devonshire in here.
Yeah, I mean, what a dude.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. Tall too. Really tall.
that hair. Oh. So I did a tour of sort of Central Eastern Europe, visiting
with him?
With Weira, making a big kind of going around a variety of sort of tech centres and innovation hubs.
What kind of like Romania,
Poland?
So
we do. Where did we do? Let me just remind myself. We did Romania, Slovenia. It was a real back and forth trip. I can't quite remember.
Austria involved, Poland.
You're like a tech rock star. You can't even remember where you're.
It was one of those. You know when someone books you flights,
right,
and you kind of forget because someone else is taking care of it. You don't. It was just like turn up at so and so at this hour, godly hour of the day, get on a plane, and then appear somewhere, and you do like a day, and then you go away again.
Right.
So all you kind of remember is the bar that you ended up in some old part of some Eastern Europe town, drinking a beer, having a nice time. You kind of forget where you were.
Feels a bit Russian.
So what did you find?
So what I found is a lot of this, Europe is super diverse, as in, France is very strong. They've got some really, they did a very similar policy to EIS and SEIS, but they didn't cap it. So you had 50% tax backs on any investments in the sector. And that went through the roof. I mean, absolutely smashed it out of the park. Billionaires and multimillionaires are now heavily investing. There's a great space opening called 42 in Paris, which is huge. Sort of big startup school, incubator, accelerator, all in one. Incredible. Berlin is still crushing it, low rents, super sexy, lots of artisanal coffee and, just really cool space. And that's kind of the start of what I see as there's a lot of places that are post-communist. 25 years ago, in 1989, the Berlin Wall falls, the curtain comes down. And these places have been struggling, and their parents' generation have been struggling with that transition from communism to capitalism, and that's a hard struggle. It's a struggle that, as Americans and Brits, we do not know in any way, And there's now this emerging breed of entrepreneurs who want to create value, want to create jobs, and want to create opportunity, but there isn't the money in the system. There isn't investment. There isn't. There's community, bits and bobs of it, and the expansion of Silicon Drinkabout is designed to help that and champion that. But the money is still very much located in the old hearts of places. It is still in Zurich, it's still in Munich, it's still in Paris, it is still in London. And those financial centres, as much as we talk about disruption, that's where the money is. And money begets money, and money means that moneyed people can be near. And so it still is, Switzerland and France and Germany, the wealthy countries that have the ability for speculative stuff. And tech is still speculative. It's not set in stone. It's not guaranteed. So I think Europe is doing a great job at trying. I think it needs to work more closely together. I think we need to celebrate the strengths of each country and really use the fact that we have the right of passage. We have the right of immigration. As members of the EU, we can be anywhere, we can do anything, we can set business up, we can transact and trade very easily. And I think that's the great strength, and London's really played to that strength by attracting talent from all over. Be it Bulgaria, Poland, be it France, be it Russia. And walking around here how diverse it is in terms of that. So I kind of want Europe to really coalesce and challenge America, because beyond Europe is Russia, and beyond there is China, and these are huge markets waiting to be tapped. And the Americans have often failed at internationalization. As soon as it starts to be non-English speaking, it tends to fall over. Twitter doesn't work in Germany because 140 characters is too short for the Germanic language.
Is it? I didn't know that.
So it's never taken off, right?
Okay.
So
they have those really long ass words, right?
they have some beautiful words.
But they're like 50 letters long. They're like
yeah,
phrases.
And they mean the most insane things, right? Like they have
Farfignugan. Right?
Yeah, they have some incredible words.
I always think my jaw could never speak German. Even if I understood it, my jaw wouldn't be able to speak it. Sometimes I'm like, how do you say that?
Hard language.
Yeah.
Tough on the ears.
Yeah. Swiss German too. Switzerland too. Yeah.
So it's never Twitter hasn't taken off over there.
No. And I think there's lots of those things. So I think there needs to be some. And the EU's doing some great work actually in trying to kind of mobilise this and investing money in it. Mainly because in lots of places, Romania, Poland, other places, there's not a lot of promise. Elsewise, it's very hard to transition an entire workforce from collectivization into individualization. That's very tough.
Yeah, that's like 100-year transition,
Yeah.
or you could argue even longer.
Well, it took a long time to get them from individualized to collective. That was challenging, and that came with fairly heavy death toll in some places.
Right.
To try and then tell them everything that you've been indoctrinated and believed is now no longer the case, and it's every man for themselves, is a real challenge. I mean, that's the cognitive dissonance of that is quite huge, right?
Yeah, and it's weird because Germany is this really weird exception because it was basically split down the middle, and when they combined in '89, West put so much investment into the East, and just funded basically the emergence of that
just
entire
absorbed
country.
it, right? Just absorbed it.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
And so they've come a long way.
Still yet to go to Berlin.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Oh really?
Yeah.
If you do go, there's a Silicon Drink about there now.
Yeah.
We launched last week.
Check it out. Yeah. On that same note,
Just last week.
Just last week.
Oh, that's surprising. I was surprised that would.
you were there.
Yeah,
earlier.
we really wanted to make sure that one was
Done
really
right.
perfect
Cool.
and looked after really well.
Brilliant.
And,
Where's like the European vacation movie where it's just drink about to drink about?
just drink about to drink about. Yeah.
Drink about movie. What are your thoughts on the States? You said you saw some valuations getting a little bit high. What do you see from the States that you like, or you think that we should be taking a lead from them, and what do you see that you don't like?
Oh God! Without
A man with an opinion, Ben Southworth.
I don't want to. Be careful. I've got some really strong, good American friends. I was actually we were out in Austin for South by Southwest.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then did a road trip up to Boulder.
Wow.
So, for anyone listening, do not drive through North Texas. It is 8 hours of just almost the same landscape, just repeating. Honestly, it was
Flat.
the most tedious. I mean, I got into like a Zen-like state. It was so flat and
It's Oklahoma.
dull.
It's Oklahoma, basically. It's the Dust Bowl, right?
Once we got into New Mexico, there was a slight moment of excitement until we realized it was exactly the same.
Except redder and more desert.
Yeah. There would be excitement in the car when there was a corner. That was how bad it got. It was,
I've done that drive. I've done the West Texas drive. West Texas can be pretty. Yeah, it's pretty bland.
pretty brutal. Where did we visit? Visit some beautiful, beautiful areas of Texas.
You don't realize how big North America is. Right,
Gigantic.
in like Canada, the U.S., it's just
when you
until
fly
you
over it.
until you drive, right?
Yeah,
It's
and
just
then you're like,
hold on a second, I just drove for 8 hours and I'm still not even out of a state
Yeah.
or a province.
And
right?
Yeah,
unpopulated
we
too.
drove for 8 hours and didn't get out of Texas.
Right.
And we hadn't even started at the edge of Texas.
And like 8 hours from London,
we'd be up in the Highlands.
Yeah.
We'd be able to get
what
to
was
Shetland.
South by Southwest like? I know everyone said it's changed a lot. It's turned from like used to be a place to recognize tech companies. Now it's a place where it's so big.
Yeah, I mean, it was our first time, my first time. Yeah, disappointing is the answer. I mean, we were really lucky. We went out with the Hackney Council crew, the Hackney House.
Right, they were over
so
there.
that's an incredible initiative, right? A London borough paying and taking people out to celebrate the local area. I mean, it's just unheard of. I mean, it's just incredible what these guys do. Just amazing. So that was fantastic to see. You know, the only other people we saw doing that was Berlin. You know, there was a German house. You know, we had a Hackney house. You know, and we found that really interesting. I was disappointed. I mean, we didn't bother paying for the conference pass, but it is too big. I think the
How big is it?
God knows. I mean, it must.
Like how many people?
I would have thought it's got to be. I mean, this is finger in the air sort of stuff. I mean, it's got to be
10,000, 20,000?
Much more. I think it's got
Because it's a music scene, it's an
got to
art
be
scene,
50,000
it's a film
total.
scene. Really?
Yeah, I would have thought.
Okay.
I would
Where does
have
everybody
thought.
stay? Jesus.
Well, I mean, it looked like almost every house was Airbnb-ing and making a killing.
Right,
You know, absolute killing. I mean, there's people paying for their entire vacations on, renting their house out for 1 week. I mean, everything is like 800% uplift during South by.
Right.
And it's in the same spot every year. Yeah, I've never been.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think it's just changed a lot over the years. It's grown so big, and so it's probably just so much to get your head around. And plus, it's music, and there's film there, and there's tech,
and the interactive piece.
there's
I mean,
everything.
we enjoyed it. But we did a very sort of British approach to it, which is there's a wonderful street called Rainy Street, which was like this depressed street that was derelict and got bought by property developers, and they just turned it into bars. So just made this little bar area, and each is these kind of really nice old houses with big backyards, and they're all craft beer pubs with live bands and stages. And to be honest, that's where you could find a Three Beards. We found this great pub called Austin Craft Beer House, had 50 different ales on tap, and we just lived out the back of there and just lived on Twitter and just invited clients and our friends, and just that's what we did. I mean, that was our scene, right?
Most conferences, you'll find out the deals are being made and all the real things are happening kind of outside the conference, and the dinners and the good conversation. So it sounds like a good way to do it. I'm going to put you back on the spot and ask you about the American scene. I'm American.
I tried to get away. Did you see what I did? I pushed that away. That was 12 months of political learning.
Chew the fat guys. Smart. But I mean, I'm American. You won't offend me. What do you see that you like about what they're doing and what that you don't?
I think the Brits do a very bad job at hustle, at self-promotion, at kind of trying to aim super big, and I think there's a lot to be learnt about the American approach to that. Which is you kind of really plant your flag, you really say you're going to go for it, you make it work, you're unafraid to fail, right? That pioneer spirit from the 19th century, and from the Mayflower and having to do what you guys did, I think is really deeply embedded in a way that it isn't sociologically in the same way in the UK. We're very happy just to kind of accept our lot in life in the UK and sort of trudge slowly towards the grave, and the Americans seem to have this kind of real fight and desire and passion. So I think
it's just it was just a geographical inevitability. I think when like you said, you go over on the boat, and then what do you do? And then you go west. If you're poor, you go west and plant some crops. And if you want to go further west until there's nobody else, and then go further west. So I think it was just like by design. I think that whole mentality.
And those that survived were genetically strong and predisposed to hardship and predisposed to hustle and making it work. And there's something I thought a lot about as I drive across North Texas, was like, who picked here? Who picked here as where to stop? Knowing that there's California and Big Sur and beautiful places. Why stop here?
Yeah.
And it really fascinating
it is fascinating.
thing to think about.
Like, guess what else was here? Native Americans wanting to kill you. No police force, no army. Like look at those John Wayne movies, like The Searchers. Like you're out there alone.
Beating sun, tornadoes. Like no rain, lack of water. Like indigenous crops are low. Like God, I mean, really putting it. No wonder Christianity is so strong, because you need something to bind people and give them a hope and optimism. So optimism is a great strength of the Americans, as well as their hospitality and their welcomeness, and I think that plays in business. Much more open and straightforward about getting stuff done, doing business, trying to make deals, trying to partner with people in the way that, again, we spoke earlier about it. People keeping stuff to their chest in the UK, not really wanting to talk about it, not really wanting to share. I think we do that really, really well. I think the thing you do unfortunately fail to do is sometimes apply some critical thinking to the own hype. People kind of believe their own hype and end up selling themselves their own dreams, and I think that causes a lot of A, not very good products, B, maybe too many of them, and sometimes I think that can have quite profound effects on people. That not everyone's cut out to throw ideas up and see them die in front of them, and I think there needs to be a sort of a realization and rationalization about that. But I think it'd be great if you could cut down on sugar and processed fats in your food. That would be awesome.
Which is for the general well-being of the citizens of America?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you saw
and the
some...
portion size. I mean, what's
Jesus
that
Christ.
about?
And you're in Texas on top of that.
My God.
I mean, in Texas, I remember I had a couple guys from Texas in my fraternity at college, and like the size of your food is almost like your own reflection of the importance of yourself. It's like, look how big my food is. And you're in Texas. They have like Texas toast.
But it is
like
hospitality. It is. I was lucky. We were lucky enough to be driving up with Andrew Hyde, who's a really good friend, and he was. It's really nice to have an American with you, especially an intelligent American, talking about this stuff, which is. A lot of it comes out in the Depression, right? A lot of it comes out of a time where there was nothing. And so now, in a time of prosperity, you're not only showcasing your wealth, you're showcasing your thankfulness, you're showcasing your gratitude, you're showcasing your desire to give, to be generous, and the idea that you should leave the table if you're not completely stuffed and unable to walk. Was shown as a sign of sort of weakness or penny pinching, when in the boom years, and I think that's really interesting.
Is that what it is? You might be right. It is dangerous.
It's a theory.
Though.
I mean, these are all theories,
Jesus,
right?
It's big food, probably same in Canada.
Yeah, I go visit my dad in Palm Springs, and it's
just like crazy. Yeah,
we have an appetizer.
That's a whole other story. Ben, before we get going, I just want to know if you could tell us about the Ada Lovelace Academy. What's going on? You tweeted out some info about it recently.
Yep.
Yeah, tell us about it.
So it's. There's a great initiative called the Free School Policy. It's a Swedish initiative that's been applied in the UK, and the aim really is to propose new ways of educational models. So what I'm doing is kind of super niche. It's a free school for 16 to 19-year-olds celebrating creative and digital entrepreneurship. So that means those of you who want to be web designers, web developers, you want to work in marketing, digital communication, creative arts, you maybe want to be a freelancer, maybe you're an illustrator. And what we're going to try and do is take those 2 years you would be at sixth form, doing your A-levels, and teach you the mechanics of business, of finance, of communicating online, of building websites, of running a blog, of doing things like podcasting, and really trying to help people, especially young people, understand that this world that we live in is available to all. And actually, if you have access to the internet and you have access to a computer, this is a path you can also take. So currently we're going to apply in September. Just started to assemble the governance board. We've got some really great people on that. Reaching out to people, trying to fundraise to kind of get some money in the system. And we're taking a really unusual approach. We're taking a lot of pedagogical sort of learnings from very expensive private schools and giving them away to anyone who wishes to come. So it's a completely free state school, but we're doing things like the Harkness method. The Harkness method is applied in Wellington College, which is a super expensive, fancy UK school, and Exeter College, which is a super expensive, fancy American school.
America, yeah.
And it's conversation-led, so you have like one teacher / facilitator to 10, and you invert the model. So homework is done in class, studying about the lesson is done on the young person's own time, and they come to the lesson with questions, and the aim is to get the young people to teach each other. So the theory is that not everyone will struggle at the same piece. They will struggle at different pieces. And if you can get peers to educate each other, that knowledge will stick far more than if someone who already knows something rushes over it and just explains it and kind of takes that, I can't believe you don't understand that approach. You're really trying to sort of let peers teach each other, because we know in the world of work, that's actually what happens. In great work environments, you're teaching each other all the time. So we're taking all of that sort of methodology and really baking it into the system, and really trying to do a lot, which is giving power to the children, giving, so the governance model, what are the rules, what is the disciplinary structure, that's all going to be on the young people to decide and to create. We're working with a series of work partners and interested people, both large tech companies and small marketing agencies, to ensure that the curriculum is exactly what they need. And now we're just beginning to sort of work out what the finance model is. So looking at not only we get funding from the DFE, the Department for Education, but also we get maybe money from those that we place into work, and also working out if a young person wants to go on to university, how do we match that up? So how does the curriculum fit in the pre-existing standards?
How did you decide that age range? You say kids, we're talking 16
yeah, I mean,
to 19.
they are young adults, in all honesty. It reduced the amount of sort of limitations that I had to focus on. If I did 11 to 14, that's very young, I think. You also have to do a lot more work around special educational needs and focusing on that, which was something I just, as someone who's got no educational experience, just seemed like a bridge too far. I thought, let's leave that to other people. I also thought that 16 was the age where I was asked, what did I want to do in my life? And the answer was, I don't know. And that question still comes up. I still don't know the answer. But I think at that age, I would have wanted a diversity of options. And whilst not knowing the outcome of maybe exactly what I was going to do, being given a suite of skills that enabled me to communicate with the modern age would have been really, really useful. So that's kind of why. You also think it's an exportable model that we can take not only across London, but also across the world. And we're talking with people like Draper University and Tim Draper of DFJ about connecting up with them, connecting up with people like General Assembly and Hyper Island, which are educational facilities for 18, 19-year-old plus, and really trying to kind of connect that piece. So a little bit of laziness, a little bit of lack of experience, but also it felt like the chance where we were a lot freer to teach in a much more grown-up adult way, without the sort of what are quite strict requirements regarding looking after children and things like you now have to have there's a form you have to fill if you deal with children to prove you're not a paedophile.
Criminal check and all
That's
that
it.
stuff.
CRB.
Yeah, CRB.
Yes.
I've filled them out before.
Yeah, so we could avoid that after the age of 16, which means that, if you guys wanted to come and do a session on how to run a killer podcast, you could come in and do 2 hours with the kids. And, that's, the community has really been banging my door down saying, I'd love to come and do something. I'd love to come and do something. I'd love to come. So really trying to mobilize that community and really create a really sort of, an open school where, you can email me that week and say, like, hey, Ben, like, we've got a few hours. Can we come and do something? It's like, yeah, sure. And really making a very sort of flexible, agile working environment that it is really 16 onwards that you're cognitively able to handle kind of those shifting and flexible sort of scenarios. When you're 11, I think you need quite a lot of structure still.
Yeah, you can kind of take some responsibility when you're at 16.
Yeah, for sure.
And be accountable, I think, a bit more.
What do you say to the parent, the cynical parent? Because I guess at 16, your parents are kind of still making the decision. They have to be fully on board, right? And so do you think that parents of 16-year-olds are at the point where they think that's, that's not too big a risk? Like, what do you say to them?
I mean, I think we're going to face that challenge, and it's something we're thinking a lot about. What we're hoping is we will have almost anywhere between a 99% chance of being, if you go to this school, that you will get a job, almost guaranteed, and good, well-paying, long-term prospects. In lots of ways, it will be a risk because it's a new school, but in education there is always a risk, and in the UK currently, when going to a university could be a £32,000 inherited debt risk, we believe that exploring these 2 years with us is worth that opportunity and worth that time. Now, we're not asking, and we don't expect it to be for everyone, but we do think we can prove that there is success and there is reward for doing it, and hopefully, knowing that they'll get this suite of bankable work skills that mean, at least for the next 5 years, they are highly employable and more employable than graduates coming out. So they have a 3-year head start, which enables them to gain a lot more on-site knowledge. If they can get that, then they're going to be well ahead of their peer group by that time. And we think that's really crucial.
How do people find out about this? Is there a website? And then if people
there is. So adalovelaceacademy.com. It's still a work in progress. You can see all the thoughts and all the thinkings. There's ways to get in touch with me and tell me your thoughts and feedbacks. There's a donation system. You can donate money and help us. We're going to hopefully do an Indiegogo campaign in the next few months.
Cool.
So sort of as it happens and develops, more and more information is going to go on that site. There's going to be a video with me soon saying the same things I'm probably saying now, and just sort of talking about it all. And I'm really trying to sort of get people excited about this idea.
Awesome.
It's a bit of a challenge, it's different to doing a startup, but lots of similar stuff, but also with big problems in it.
Yeah, I think it's incredible, but you're right. Those are big lines you're trying to move in sort of the fabric of our foundation of society. And
potentially
it's great.
super rewarding too if you get it right. So we'd be definitely down for doing some podcasting instructions.
Cool.
I think everyone should do a podcast personally. So why not, right? If people want to get in touch with you, your Twitter at In the Company of.
Yep.
What's that about?
So there's a failed startup from when I was 18. I still own the domain. It was called In the Company of Us, and it was going to be a site where musicians, poets, and artists could basically have a virtual gallery online. And we built it. We had the code, and then we just kind of lunched out in the way that you do when you're sort of 18, and also a musician. So what we realised was since we couldn't even be bothered to update our own site, perhaps no one else was going to be bothered either.
That's a good sign.
So 18. How many years ago is that? It's like
it's about 15 years ago now.
So
yeah, there you go. Well, you can
visionary.
Follow you on Twitter at In the Company of. And Chew the Fat. They can catch you at hosting the next few Chew the Fats.
Yeah, the next
all
one
at
is
3 Beards.
Yeah, so 3beards.com.
Right.
And next Chew the Fat, 6th of May, with Dayhan from Design Museum. It's going to be. I'm so excited.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I had a lunch with him about 6 months ago, and it was the most intelligent and stimulating lunch I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
Such a bright man.
Wow. And Silicon Drinkabouts, you're at those, and you're going to be. You can still be touring around Europe occasionally for those.
Yeah, I've got another European tour coming up.
How many are there in Europe now?
I wouldn't like to say. I think we're at about 11, and we're expanding into Austin. There's New York. We're taking over the world.
That's really
insane.
Crazy, actually.
It's patio season too, so
yeah,
that's when I come out of my cave in the summertime.
Yeah, now the weather's really kicking off. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, us Londoners love a little sunshine, man. It really changes everything.
It really does, right?
Yeah.
The whole attitude of London just.
Yeah, it flips on and can flip off like that.
Oh, God, yeah.
So be ready. Ben, thanks so much for coming back. You really kicked us off on such a good note when you decided to be our guest. I remember approaching you at one of the Drinkabouts saying, okay, we're going to do this. We'd really like for you to be our guest. And you were like, I think I could do that. So, no, thanks so much. I hope we've made you proud with our episodes and
totally.
and the content. So
that means, I don't know what pride I can take, but it is so awesome how this scene has, grown and grown and grown. And, I think, me, Mike and Bryce every now and then just kind of pinch ourselves about, over the last 4 years, like what was tiny and niche to where it's come now. And just, sometimes it does really humble you and you kind of, a little tear appears because it's, we couldn't have dreamed that this would explode like it did. And to have been a small part of it has just been a tremendous honor.
Yeah, and it's a strange piece of history, and it won't be repeated again.
Yeah.
It's like, like London tech arc that happened, well, those years.
Gold rush only happens once.
Yeah, right. Awesome. If you're listening to us on iTunes, you can watch us all at the Silicon Reel YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at Silicon Reel, Facebook. Send us a message, hello@siliconreel.com. We're always looking for guest suggestions. If you want to help out, you want to cut some videos for us, you want to introduce us to a guest, yes.
Yes. And, if you're a kid who's got nothing to do for the summer, we're always looking for interns, man. So if you want to get into the tech scene, if you're going to be in London, hit us up with an email. I think it's a great opportunity to help out some kids that
Can I make a plug for I also need?
Yeah, go.
If anyone wants to help me with the free school, if you're a teacher, if you're a student, if you've got any ideas, please get in touch. I can't do this on my own. So anything is welcome. Interns also, I'll take interns. Yeah.
Right, well said.
Help Ben out first.
Yeah, him first. And
help
then
these
us.
guys out first, and then come. We'll share. We can share.
But I mean, if you just want to get to know this community, like working with any one of us would be fantastic, and you'll get really plugged in and get to meet all sorts of people just doing the work. So probably more so than even a 3-month paid job, but I won't get into that. So there you go. It's Silicon Reel. It's about the people. Ben, thanks for being here, and all the best.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.
All right, take care.
If I had an aspiration for all companies to float here, it would, it'd make sure that you've got a relationship with them early on, that they know why, and that they feel comfortable. I would like a lot more companies choose to float rather than sell out early. And one of my chief bugbears in the UK and Europe is that often entrepreneurs sell out when they've got 10, 20, 30, 50 million in revenue. And with a little bit of extra work, our ecosystem can help them produce companies that are 100, 200, 300 million in revenue.